It's time for this week's episode of Brandon Sports Talk, featuring in-depth interviews from those who are trending in the world of athletics. And now, here's the host of Brandon Sports Talk, Brandon Pate.
Welcome back to Brandon Sports Talk. In today's episode, I have the privilege of interviewing the Midland Warriors head women's ice hockey coach, Coach Jason White. How are you doing today?
Great. Thanks, Brandon. Thanks for having me on. Really appreciate this.
Thank you. Can you talk about how you knew that you wanted to get started in coaching in college women's ice hockey?
Well, it's not a quick story, but I'll try to keep it as quick as possible. I had never had any inclination to coach women's hockey, believe it or not. I played college hockey at UNO. I was originally from Canada. I was working at a rink locally here in Fremont, Nebraska, running a youth hockey program when Midland University added men's and women's hockey to their athletic programs. And I watched the women's hockey team practice for about 2 years straight, and they had been struggling quite a bit. And I talked to the men's coach, talked to the AD, and eventually they made it a full-time position because originally it was a GA position to coach the women's hockey team. They made it a full-time position. I transitioned over, and that's ultimately how I became a women's head hockey coach. And I wouldn't change it for anything. I've had a great experience.
What was that experience like for you playing college hockey for Nebraska, Oklahoma?
Well, being at University of Nebraska Omaha, to be honest, when they were a brand new program in 1997, so they were starting as an independent program, a D1 program, and I honestly, living in Ottawa, Ontario, Canada, we had no idea where Omaha was. I think the only inclination I kind of had was from the Counting Crows with their song Omaha, I think is what it was, Omaha. So anyways, I had no idea. We had to look it up on a map. My dad and I figured out where it was. I ended up coming down on a campus visit and absolutely loved Omaha. It was a beautiful Midwest town and ended up deciding coming here, and I wouldn't trade it for anything.
What was that experience like as a hockey player getting to put on that Omaha jersey?
It was really exciting. I mean, we're a new program. We were in a new market. Really, Omaha only had the USHL team, which was the Omaha Lancers, and again, a very prominent program with Mike Hastings at the helm. And they had some success and won the USHL championship a few times. But we were the big ticket, so I won't lie, we were spoiled. The city embraced us. We had about an 8,000 seat arena called the Civic Auditorium, and we sold out straight for 6 years, and we set a college hockey attendance record. So the city welcomed us. I loved Omaha. It was even though it was a large city, it still felt like a small, easy to get around Midwest city, which I loved. So I'm here now, married with 2 kids, and live and reside in Omaha, and absolutely love the town.
During your time as a hockey player, what were some of your biggest accomplishments?
For me, I think as a junior hockey player, being able to get to the Royal Bank Cup, which was we competed in the semifinals. So it was basically your top junior teams out of Canada went to the Royal Bank Cup. It's now called the Centennial Cup again, but we were able to get to the semifinals and lost a heartbreaker. That was a big, I would say, milestone in my hockey career, getting an opportunity to do that. And then I think being able to receive a Division I scholarship where I was able to get a full ride and have an opportunity to come here to University of Nebraska at Omaha and get to play here.
After playing, what was that experience like getting to play hockey for Valley Lace?
Sorry, what was that, Brendan?
What was that experience like getting to play professional hockey?
For me, it was a unique experience. I wasn't sure how it was going to play out. I ended up in Colorado with my buddy for a bit and got a chance to play it because originally I didn't do it right after college. I kind of got into coaching and then coaching some AAA. And then as I think I was about 32, so I'd been retired for a while. I decided to come out of retirement and play some pro hockey in Colorado with my buddy, which was a lot of fun.
What was that transition like coming from being retired to getting back into hockey and playing?
It was difficult at times. Again, it's amazing when you're in college, you train, you're in unbelievable shape, and then when you stop doing that, you get out of shape really quick. And I always say hockey shape is very good shape. So I had to retrain and really get myself into a better situation, uh, conditioning wise, in order to be able to compete again. And even at that point, when I was 32, I had some injuries as I was trying to play pro. It definitely hurt me a little bit, but I got through it, and I was still able to play for a little while.
What was that experience like for you going back to your alma mater of Nebraska Omaha and getting to coach?
So being at UNO and getting to, that's really where I found the love and passion for coaching, was at UNO. I did it at my grad. So as an undergrad, I coached for a full year, and then I came in on as a volunteer. And to be around Mike Kemp, who is, I think, uh, an outstanding coach. He had a long career at UNO, but he was also an assistant coach at University of Wisconsin with Badger Bob and with Jeff Sauer. They won national championships there, and Mike was a great recruiter. So to be able to work with him was a lot of fun. I was also able to work. Our assistant coaches at the time were David Quinn, who is now the head coach of the San Jose Sharks. David Quinn had a lot of influence on me as a coach. And then Steve Rollick, who's now the head coach at the Division One level for the Ohio State, their hockey program. And Ralsey was a very passionate guy. So having those three guys and being around them, I learned so much, and it allowed me to kind of take some things of how I wanted to grow and develop as a coach. There were certain things I really liked. There was other things that I wanted to stay away from. So they had a big part in my development as a coach.
For you as a coach and playing in men's ice hockey, what was that transition like getting into coaching the women's ice hockey?
So there was definitely, I had only coached men or boys all the way through. So whether I played men's hockey and then got into coaching on the men's side, it was collegiate men's, and then I started running a AAA program in Omaha, Nebraska, and that was young boys, ages 16 to 18, getting ready for juniors. And then when I was coaching the youth program here in Fremont, Nebraska, I coached that and built that program for about 6 to 7 years. Everything was with males. So the transition onto the female side really surprised me. I wasn't sure what to expect. And it was a really pleasant surprise where the women were just very eager and willing to learn. They were hungry to learn and continue to grow and develop, and they're very competitive. So it was a lot of fun transitioning onto the women's side, and I've had a blast. And they've really bought into creating our culture and our growth and our program from 7 years ago to now being nationally ranked as the number one program in the nation, and having an opportunity to win a national championship is really exciting.
Coming to Midland, what was that experience like first becoming the assistant coach?
So at Midland, I was an assistant coach on the men's side, but I was always the head coach for the women's program. I took over from the GAs that they had originally coaching, and then hired me as a full-time head coach on the women's side, where I got to work as an assistant on the men's side. Now in my current role, I oversee both programs, the men and the women. I'm still the head coach of the women's, but I basically am called program director. So for me, just being a head coach of the women's team and then still being able to get that other side of being an assistant coach with the men's team, I feel like I have the best of both worlds. So sometimes as a head coach, you've got to be a little more stern, a little more direct at times, but as an assistant coach on the men's side, you get to come in and kind of approach with a different angle, maybe a little more positivity and supporting and picking them up. So I kind of get the best of both worlds. I'm sure my women's team would say, coach, it'd be nice if you could be the assistant coach for a while and maybe back off a little bit. But at the end of the day, it's worked for us, and the culture that they built here has been outstanding.
What was that feeling like the first time you became the head coach for the women's ice hockey at Midland?
There was a little bit, I think I was a little nervous because I was getting into women's college hockey. So on the men's side, I'd been coaching at the AAA level and then also coaching at my alma mater at UNO. It's a different, recruiting is so important with college hockey. And then even at the youth level of U16 and U18 AAA, you're always recruiting. And that was my biggest concern was I had to develop new relationships for recruiting because you're recruiting as a collegiate coach is probably 90% of your job, especially when you're at a private institution that's very small. You wear a lot of different hats. So recruiting is a big part of it. So I had to figure out the lay of the land and develop new relationships with new coaches, with new programs on the women's side in order to start recruiting quality student athletes. So that's where I was really nervous. And it took me 2 to 3 years to figure that out. And then once I kind of developed those relationships, now we're starting to see our growth and development. We continue to get stronger, faster, more competitive student athletes. And that has really led to a lot of our success.
As a head coach, what was that feeling like the first time you got to step onto that ice?
For me, that first game at Midland where I was coaching, I think it was a bunch of different emotions. But again, it was something that, as a coach, you stepped into, and I'm like, okay, where do we truly stand? Where are we at? What is the lay of the land? I had so many questions, but there again, there was excitement, there was fear, a little bit of everything kind of thrown in. But once we got the game under our belt, it kind of allowed me to figure out as that season played out, it allowed me to get a better feel of where we needed to go and where the program needed to head. So after that, I took a lot of input and then just tried to change and continue to grow and develop the program.
As a head coach, what was that first win like, getting that first win for the women's ice hockey coach?
Well, that was exciting. Again, I know the program had their first win. They'd been in existence 2 years before I took over the program. But I would say just for myself as a coach, starting in, kind of in a new program for myself and kind of a new team that I was going to take over, it was nice to get that first win. It always feels good. I can tell you 7 years, if someone had told me we'd be in the situation that we're in now 7 years later, I don't know if I would have believed them. But again, hard work, perseverance, continuing to recruit has led to the situation that we're in now where we get to sit back and be proud of what we've accomplished so far.
What does a typical game day look like for you as a head coach versus for your players?
Well, typically our girls get to the rink about 2.5 hours before we hit the ice. We typically do video, all that good stuff. But for me, I'm probably here first thing. So if we typically we play on Saturdays at 4 o'clock in the afternoon and Sundays at noon. So Saturdays I will typically get into the office around 10 in the morning. I'll go over film, break things down, make sure that we've got proper film and footage ready before the girls get here. I kind of have my routine that I do that I've kind of just set in stone. I don't think I need to go into detail with it, but it's just getting the score sheet ready. It's getting your game card ready. It's making sure you have the conversations that you need to have with certain players and getting them ready for the game and making sure they're feeling good. So yeah, it's typically it's a long day, and I get here on a Saturday at 10 a.m. Games at 4 o'clock. By the time it wraps up, and by the time I get out of here, it's typically 7 or 8 o'clock. Sometimes we have a men's game right after, so I will go from my bench and playing and coaching with the girls, with the women's team, and heading right over to the men's game. So sometimes we have back-to-back games for it. So it makes for some long days, but I wouldn't trade it in for anything. At the end of the day, I'm doing something that I love.
What is that like, as you said, as a coach, going from coaching as a head coach for the women's and then transitioning into being, let's say, the assistant coach for the men's on the same day?
Yeah, it can make for a long day. So sometimes it's just a quick recharge, and making sure that your women's team is still set and focused on the next day. Because I like to have a little bit of a routine after the game with our women and make sure that they're mentally and physically taking care of things and making sure they're ready for the next game. So sometimes I shortchange that a little bit in order to get out with the men's game and be on the bench with them. And then you kind of have to change your mindset and your role a little bit, transitioning from the women to the men, and being a head coach with one and an assistant coach with the other. So I make it work. I wouldn't trade it in for anything.
Can you talk about, of course, the culture that you've built for the women's ice hockey program?
Yeah, I mean, when I first took over here, we had a lot of things that we needed to shore up. Um, the culture that we wanted to have was accountability, respect. I took a little bit, like I talked about, Coach Kemp that I had at UNO as my head coach. It was very meticulous with time management and making sure that, I remember the old saying, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. So I still take that from coach and I preach it to our players now. But just time management, making sure that you're there on time, that you're accountable, that you're there for your teammates. We talk about family, right? And how important it is to, we're together for so long in a season. We're traveling on buses, we're flying, we're always together, practices, maybe they have each other in classes. So it really is a family away from a family. And we all know that families sometimes can have squabbles and can have some tough times. Who, we just talk about being able to have open communication, talking about their feelings. Like if a player's struggling with someone or with a player, they need to have an adult conversation and make sure that they talk it out. I don't think it's healthy to keep stuff in. I don't think it's healthy to have secrets. We're one big family. We're a team. We support each other. And that culture really has allowed us to have success on the ice, because if you have a healthy locker room, where people feel safe and can trust everyone in that space, it translates onto the ice. And I think having that locker room has allowed us to have so much success on the ice.
Who are some of the teams that you face in your conference each week?
So we have some large universities that we play against: University of Minnesota, University of Arizona State. In our conference, we have Liberty University, we have Minot State out of North Dakota. We have Maryville University, which is just in Chesterfield, Missouri area, right by St. Louis. McKendree, that is in, I think they're in Illinois, McKendree is. Lindenwood University, right in Charleston, Missouri. So we have a very competitive conference. We do have teams in Utah. So University of Utah has a team. We have University of Michigan. We have Michigan State. We have teams as far east as UMass. So there is quite a lot of travel, and we get to see a lot of different universities.
What is that like, obviously, having teams like Lindenwood come to your home rink versus going to like UMass?
Well, Lindenwood has built a great program there. And getting to go to Lindenwood, we love attend. They have a beautiful facility that they utilize, and it's under the St. Louis Blues. It's actually the NHL's training facility, and they have 4 sheets of ice there. One is an outdoor pavilion. So that's actually where they're holding the national championship this year for the ACHA. And they hold it for the ACHA men's 1, 2, and 3 levels, and the women's 1 and 2 level. So, getting to Lindenwood, it's a great experience, but then getting to travel, further. We went out east this year. We played in UMass and Rhode Island, which was a great experience for our girls because a lot of our girls are Canadian. So they're getting to see a lot of the United States and different states within the country, which is exciting. And then we traveled to great spots, Minneapolis, we had to St. Louis, we'll go to Colorado. I would say, Minot, North Dakota isn't exactly the most fun place to be, especially during the winter. But at the end of the day, it's a neat trip, right? So we get to really travel quite a bit and get a lot of great experiences.
What is that home game atmosphere like in your home rink?
We have a facility, I'd say our rink seats about 2,000 people. So, on a good night, and we get a lot of student support, especially after we've kind of had success here. Probably the last 4 years, we've continued to have success. And with that success, I think comes more support. Everyone wants to be part or associated with a winning program. So we've seen our student numbers increase at our games, both on the men's and women's side. So when we get that arena packed, it's a great atmosphere. But again, we have some odd game times. So a Sunday, we play a lot of games Sunday at noon for the women's side. Noon, we typically don't get a lot of support on a Sunday at noon. We got people going to church and doing other things. So it's sometimes the Sunday afternoon game isn't as quite as packed, but our Saturdays, or if we play on a Friday night, we usually get a good amount of people. So it's a fun atmosphere in that rink.
So far as head coach for the women's, what have been some of the things that you've been able to accomplish?
Well, there was a lot of firsts. We've had, our first winning season. Actually, we had my first year, I think we were 19, 14 and 1 or 2. We had our first winning season, right? So the first 2 years they struggled. We're well under 500. We were able to get our first winning season. My first year, my second year as a coach, we were able to make it to the national tournament. We ended up upsetting University of Colorado, the Buffaloes. We upset them in our conference tournament in the final, and that was our first time that our program got to experience a national tournament. And then the last 3 years have been really crazy. We've been able to get to the national tournaments. We've been able to win another conference tournament. I would say the only thing right now that we're missing is winning a national championship. That's ultimately our goal this year. But this year's been an outstanding year. We're currently undefeated. I think we're sitting at, I think we played 21 games and we have 20 wins and 1 tie. So we have not lost yet this year. We're undefeated. And the girls have put together a great season so far. So I'm excited to see what will happen here in the second half.
What was that experience like going to the tournament?
That first national tournament was crucial for this program. I think being able to get that group of girls to that experience, they got to see the top teams in the ACHA, and it allowed me as a coach to understand what we needed to do to be able to consistently get there every year. So that was such a crucial and pivotal part of the growth of our program, getting to that national tournament. We got such a great experience. It was in Dallas, I think it was Dallas Fort Worth. And it was just a great experience all around. And the girls had so much fun. They competed their hearts out. But we ran into Liberty. Liberty ended up winning that national tournament. And they've honestly won the last 5 national tournaments. So Liberty University has an outstanding hockey program. And that's where we want to take this program. We want to get to that level. And we feel like at the college level, especially at the ACHA Women's 1 level, the coaches that are coaching are so driven. They continue to get better and better student athletes recruited to their programs. So we're seeing so much parity now at the ACHA Women's One level with your top 15 teams all able to beat each other on any given night, which is really exciting.
What does that recruitment process look like for those prospective student athletes? And as a head coach, what do you look at in those prospective student athletes?
So the biggest thing for me is I want a driven student athlete. I don't want to have to chase and nag. So for me, there's a lot of research that goes into it. You want to talk to their coaches, you want to talk to friends, you want to talk to family, you want to get a really good feel for that student athlete. I know it sounds bad, but I don't want to have to babysit. I want a student athlete that is driven in the classroom and also driven to be better on the ice and want to grow and learn. And really, where we've kind of hit our niche kind of recruiting has been up in Canada, getting up into Manitoba, Saskatchewan, Ontario. We're really hitting those rural, small town kind of farming communities where we're running into these really hardworking families, and these kids have great family values and understand how to put in a good day's hard work. And so when you get them onto the ice or get them into the classroom, they don't struggle with any of those transitions. And that's where we've really had a lot of success is we've just found really good people, great families, and kids that are driven and want to work hard. And that's really led to a lot of our success. So on the recruiting side, I wouldn't change anything. We continue right now. We're looking for 8 new players to fill the roster for 2024-2025 season. And we're talking to a bunch more Canadians up there as well.
Of course, as a head coach, what is that like, obviously, recruiting in Canada and overseas in those areas that ice hockey is popular?
Well, what I've been able to do is I've actually been able to get some local scouts to kind of help out in that situation too, right? So they attend a lot of games, they communicate with me, and then it allows me, because ultimately I like to get in front of the families and the players and get to see them in person. But it's so difficult with the demand of our schedule and trying to get up 10 to 12 to 14 hours up into Canada from where we're located is not easy. So I have scouts that get back to me that do a lot of evaluations and then let me know what players they're really liking. From there, then I will find the time to get up into that area and get to see those players usually throughout a full weekend. And it's kind of like killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I don't want to go up there too much and be blind and just trying to find players. We have a pretty good beat on who we want, and then we'll get up there and get in front of them in person and then evaluate from there.
What does that official visit look like when those prospective student athletes come to Midland?
Yeah, campus visit, typically we try to have them come down and have them here for at least a couple days if possible. But because of the demand on these high school students, with missing too much school from obviously hockey and travel, right, with their respective AAA programs, and then being away for these campus visits, because I know a lot of these student athletes aren't just looking at one school. They want to check out 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 and get a really good feel. So for us, we try to get them in on a Sunday evening if we can, and then we'd have a campus visit on Monday. We were able to have them practice with the team and really get a good feel for what our program is about and get a feel for me as a coach. They get a full campus visit where I'm with the family and we walk them around campus and we talk about all the unique things that we have going on at Midland University. And then we also get them in front of the head of the college that they're interested in, as far as if it's our business college at the university, or if it's our nursing program or whatever it may be. They will get about a half hour, 30 to 40 minute breakdown of the program and what classes they'll need to take. So I try to make it very intimate and make sure that I'm with the family and with the player for that full time that they are on campus.
What is that like as a coach, seeing them fall in love with the campus and the rink that they will be playing in?
There's no better feeling, I'll tell you that, as a coach, when you have a family come in and you get that feeling, you can just tell that they are excited, that they really enjoy where they're at. I feel like one of our niches, we're a small private arts school, so we only have 1,500 students here at Midland, and 1,400 of them are student athletes. We have 33 varsity sports on campus. So everyone feels like they're in a small family, including our faculty and staff. They all understand that they're working with 1,400 student athletes, right? So we have different sports at different times throughout the semesters when they might have to travel. So I feel like our small campus and our ratio of students to professors for our classes, it attracts a lot of families, especially for me up in Canada, being that they're in smaller towns, and that they're dealing with smaller high schools. This is a nice transition for them where they get to see that, oh my God, come my junior year, there's only 10 to 12 students in my class to the one professor, right? That makes for some great learning and a lot of attention, which I love. And I just feel like that allows them to feel like they are at home. And usually when we get a player on campus, a lot of times they end up committing to play at Midland, which I think says a lot about our faculty, our staff, the programs that we have on campus, and really how beautiful our campus is. They do such a great job.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those freshmen put on that Midland orange uniform for the first time?
Again, a great feeling, but obviously there's always nerves because it's their first games. It's the first games for them, and first games as a coach, having those players now in your program. So, practice is practice, but you get players into a game situation, and sometimes you see some different things. So, yeah, there's anxiousness, nervousness, excitement, all of that gets combined into that, I guess, that moment. But a lot of times, because of the quality of person and who they are, they really rise to the occasion. And it's a nice feeling as a coach, being able to just see them get out there and have their first game and have that success. So it really is a great feeling and a lot of fun to see them in a Midland jersey.
What is that like as a coach seeing them have those first goals and those first assists?
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. We started a tradition here. I'm sure most college hockey programs do it. I know at UNO, this is where I got it from, was at my alma mater at UNO. My first goal, the puck was taken and put on a plaque and given to me, right? The date and who it was against and all of that good stuff. So I've continued that tradition here at Midland University. So when the freshmen score their first goal, first collegiate goal, we keep that puck, we get it mounted on a plaque and get it engraved for them so they have that for the rest of their lives. Mine's actually still in my office here up at Midland. I bring it with me. It's up on the wall. Proud of it, so hopefully it has the same meaning for those girls as well.
What is it like getting to see those seniors put on that uniform for the last time?
That's tough. I guess some people call me a bit of a baby. Maybe my wife would too. I get emotional, and there's times where I tear up. We've had some girls. I've got one girl that's been with us for 6 years. You get 5 years of eligibility at the ACHA level, as opposed to NCAA where you only get 4. But then we also had a COVID year. So one of my players who's been a captain for a long time for us and has basically seen this program grow in those 6 years to now, it's going to be her last year. She's doing a graduate program, but there's a lot of players like that. So, I mean, really, it's going to be tough. This year is going to be one of my toughest. We're losing a good amount of girls and a good amount of girls that have really helped build and shape this program over the last 4 years. And really allowed us to be what we are now. So it's going to be a tough February, at the end of February, before we head to conference tournament. We're at home against Utah, and that's senior weekend. So that's going to be a rough one for sure.
As a head coach, what is it like seeing those seniors put on that last uniform and their first professional uniform, whether it's the PHF or going professionally overseas?
We've had some girls go overseas, and it's always a great experience. I'm so proud of them. You're almost like a proud father, right? You want to see them continue to have success, whether they move on into the real world and finding themselves a great job, or whether it's getting to continue to play hockey. Not everyone gets to continue to play hockey after college. And if you're fortunate enough, there's no better feeling to see those girls go have success, whether it's the pro league or whether it's heading overseas to play some international hockey over there, which is great. So yeah, for me, it's a very proud moment. We've been fortunate to have a couple that have been able to do it, but typically at the ACHA Women's One level, you don't see a lot of players move on to the professional ranks. So for us to have two a couple years ago was a really exciting moment for us, and obviously a very proud moment for me.
What are some of your future plans for the women's ice hockey program at Midland moving forward?
Well, we want to continue to maintain what we're doing now. I don't think you should ever be satisfied with your accomplishments. I always think there's more to achieve. I think one of the biggest things I am probably the most proud of with our program is on the academic side. We've had success on the ice. That's great. I'm happy with that, obviously. But on the academic side, I think it's a better story. When I took over this program, we were sitting at about a 2.75 overall team GPA. This past semester, 25 of our 28 girls received recognition for either Dean's List or President's List. And we had an overall team GPA of a 3.77 GPA. So for me, that is the biggest win. And we want to continue to see that grow. And believe it or not, here at Midland, we were not the top academic team. I think we were third or fourth overall, and we want to become the number one academic team at Midland. We also want to become a national championship program here, and we want to continue to have somewhat of a dynasty like Liberty has been able to do. Winning 5 national championships in a row is not easy to do, but that's something that we've set our goals on. So obviously this year it's find a way to win the first one if we can, and then continue to move forward from there. But I think the biggest thing is never being satisfied, always pushing forward, always wanting to better yourself. Really, we talk about that a lot as a team, whether it's academically or on the ice. We just want to continue to make ourselves better.
What advice would you give those incoming freshmen entering their first year of college women's ice hockey?
I think, well, I've seen it. I remember going back to my freshman year, it was a lot of, coming from Ottawa, Ontario, that's 22 hours away from Nebraska. One, I remember it wasn't an easy drive. We had to cross the border at Detroit over the big bridge. I mean, it was very intimidating because we'd never been out of Canada. I had never been to the States before. So, making that trip, I remember it was a tough transition for me, being away from home and my parents, really for the first time for a long period of time. So I know it was a tough transition for me, but I was able to get comfortable. And I feel like for our freshmen coming in, they're in the same boat. They're even younger. I was a 21-year-old freshman coming in from junior hockey. We got to remember these young freshmen are coming in. Some of them are still 17, finishing up high school in Canada and coming in as a 17-year-old, turning 18. So they are still a young adult and very impressionable. So for them, I think being away from their family, coming from small towns and doing all of this, transitioning into a college and then having to deal with classes, the demand of practices, games, all of this structure, it can be overwhelming. So really, we've seen some freshmen that take a little bit longer to transition, and sometimes the first semester can be tough. And in the second semester, they become a lot more comfortable. And then we've seen freshmen that come in right away and it doesn't phase them and they're comfortable and away they go. So I think it just varies for each freshman that comes in. But it's always a lot of fun. My wife and I try to help them out if they're struggling, maybe with homesickness. We'll have them over to the house for a home cooked meal, have them hang out with my 2 daughters that are 13 and 9 to give them more of a family atmosphere and just make them feel like they're a little bit more comfortable and at home. So again, we try to make that transition as easy as possible for them, but sometimes it can be difficult.
What advice would you give those college ice hockey players out there that are looking to play professionally in the PWH or even overseas?
I would just say continue. Like the biggest thing is your work ethic and compete level. If you're wanting to go play pro hockey again, collegiate, they always talk about it. It's like a triangle, right? And the elite of the elite are playing at the top, but it's tough to get there, right? So at the base of the triangle, maybe you have, AAA, and then at the next level, you've got your collegiate, and you've got to remember at the collegiate level, there's NCAA Division I, there's NCAA Division III, and then we have ACHA, right? So at that collegiate level, to make the jump to pro and get up to the elite of the elite is not easy. So you have to be relentless in all areas, your competition level, your work ethic. You have to be mentally strong. It's not for everyone. But to be able to see the pro levels at the women's hockey level continuing to grow, to see the type of athletes that are coming up to play the pro level now. Women's hockey is growing exponentially. It's exciting. It's fun. So if there's any of our girls that get that opportunity, we've had two go so far and they've had such great experiences. They got over to Germany and got to see the world. I would just say if it's a dream of theirs to do that, put in the time and the effort. You can't shortchange yourself. You can't think, well, I'm going to sleep in this morning till 10 a.m. And then I'll, maybe go to the rink for a little bit and do this or that. You have to be disciplined in all areas, your sleep, your nutrition, your work ethic, right? All of that factors in. So I'm hoping that here at Midland, we can have a few more, or maybe get that experience down the road and get overseas if possible.
What advice would you give those players out there that are looking to get into coaching after their playing career?
Well, what I love here at Midland is we do a great job of, having the graduate assistant job where it allows our graduate assistants to be able to take a 2-year graduate program, get their graduate degree, all while getting to coach within the sport that they truly love. So, for example, my graduate assistant this year was our former captain from last year, Maggie Marcotte. She's from Bemidji. She's a workhorse. She's an unbelievable person. She understands our culture and expectations here. And she's been able to transition and now be an assistant coach here with me. So I think she's getting some valuable experience. And I'm hoping that after her experience here, it'll open up some doors for her to become a head coach, maybe at the ACHA level somewhere.
What advice would you give those assistant coaches and head coaches out there looking to get into the sport of women's ice hockey?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of times that you see, whether it's assistant coaches or coaches coming into women's hockey, a lot of times it's they played the sport, right? So I think you've got to have a pretty solid background in the sport and played it for a while. Usually that's the norm. It's very, I mean, I know there's great coaches out there that have a ton of success that maybe didn't play the sport, but have then transitioned into the sport and become, great coaches. I would just say, I think, the trend is seeing these student athletes have a great experience at the collegiate level, playing the sport that they love, and they want to be able to give back. So whether it's, maybe working with a youth program here locally, like we have our girls do, to give them more of an experience of giving back and getting the hang of coaching, or whether it's becoming a graduate assistant at a program and continuing to learn and give back to the sport. I would just say that usually you see the player that plays the sport transition to become a coach. But again, that's not always the case. And if you just have a passion for teaching and helping people and wanting to give back to a sport, then I say go for it.
What advice would you give those future head coaches out there that are looking to build their own program and build their own legacy in women's ice hockey?
I would just say, don't be afraid to get after it. I wasn't sure about taking the job here at Midland at first. I was a little bit cautious because I didn't know truly what I was getting into. It was actually my wife that convinced me and said, you need to take a look at this a little bit more and evaluate it a bit more. And after we talked as a family, she kind of gave me that nudge and I went for it. So I would say don't be afraid to jump in. Um, and it takes time and work as well. Like it's I thought it would be a little bit easier to build the program, and it took time. It's taken me, it's taken 7 years to get the program to where I truly wanted it to get to and have that recognition and success. But it was 7 hard years of a lot of work and a lot of time on the phone, a lot of time recruiting, teaching. So I would just say go for it and don't be afraid, especially if you're a hard worker. I think in this situation for me, it's been a lot of hard work, but there's no better feeling when you put in that hard work and then see the fruits of your labor. So been a lot of fun.
That's great advice. Where can my listeners find you at on social media along with the Midland Warriors women's ice hockey program at?
Okay, so I'm terrible with I don't know exactly what our website is. I would just say Google. This is me. I'm so not techie. Google Midland Women's Hockey. That will bring you up to our main webpage for the women's ice hockey at Midland. And you can see all the years, you can see all the information on our program and kind of how things have progressed. The other website that I would Google would be ACHA hockey. And that will bring you up to the main webpage for ACHA, which has a men's 1, 2, and 3, and then it also has women's 1 and 2. I know we have an Instagram and a Facebook. I don't know all of the links for that, but I'm pretty sure when you Google it, all of that stuff eventually comes up. So I would just say Midland University Women's Hockey. Google it, and hopefully you get enough information that pops up.
Thank you again, Coach Jason White, for your interview, and best of luck in your future as the head women's ice hockey coach at Midland Warriors.
Awesome. Thanks, Brandon. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. You can find Brandon Sports Talk on Instagram at Brandon Sports Talk, Twitter at Talk_Brandon, and you can find me on YouTube at Brandon Sports Talk. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you again, Coach Jason White, for your interview, and best of luck in your future at Midland.
You've been watching Brandon Sports Talk. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to Brandon Sports Talk on social media and on YouTube.